Hey folks, and a very warm welcome to another episode of This is HCD. My name is Jerry Scullion and I'm a human-centered service design practitioner based in the wonderful city of Dublin, Ireland. I'm the founder of This is HCD and I'm delighted to welcome Jeff Gothelf onto the show today. Jeff, as many of you will probably be familiar with his name, has created several awesome books over the last decade in particular. Having a look at his website here, you can see that he offers coaching, consulting, training and keynotes. Just looking at the books that Jeff has created over the last maybe 10 years, Lean UX is the one that really was the breakout, that many of us really helped transform the user experience practice and really help sort of get it going within organizations all over the world. Now, over the last maybe 6 or 7 years, Jeff has been working primarily in helping organizations implement OKRs, and that's what we're going to be speaking about in this episode. He has been really focused on helping set the conditions for organizations to create better products and services. So no better man than just having a conversation about what OKR means, what are the stumbling blocks. A lot of the conditions that I would ask myself when I go into organizations and I work with them or for them, I often ask these questions about how are these conditions set? And Jeff is extremely knowledgeable and extremely open as well. He's been a phenomenal guest on the show. So if you are, just like myself, curious about OKRs and how they impact our work and what we can do to set the conditions as design leaders to make them more prolific and more prominent within the organization and ultimately set them up for success, then this is going to be a great episode for you, okay? Jeff is absolutely fantastic. His book is going to be coming out probably in the next year or so. Don't quote me on that. But please check out jeffgothelf.com. Check him out on LinkedIn. There's going to be a link in the show notes or in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. Any of these books here that you see on the screen are well worth purchasing. They are absolutely fantastic. As you can see, I've actually got one here, Sense and Respond, second last book. It is a great book and a great read. Definitely one that you'll come back to time and time again as you look to hone your craft as a change maker. Listen, there's also a few other things I wanted to draw your attention to. We obviously have got a premium feed on This is HCD. Become part of the HCD movement. It really helps support us, all of the content creators that have worked alongside me over the last 6 or 7 years. It would be so fantastic if we got your support. It's $3.99 a month. You get access to the full back catalogue of all the episodes on This is HCD. The feed that you have in your player at the moment is restricted. You only have access to the last 6-month episodes. So if you want to get access to everything that goes back all the way over until 2017, this is a great way to support the podcast, get access to the episodes early, and, be able to ask me questions. If you want to ask questions, you can reach out there as well. But anyway, let's jump straight into this episode with Jeff. Jeff is awesome. I know you're going to love it. If you've got any questions, reach out to us, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this episode. Thanks for listening and enjoy it. Jeff, we can kick it off because I know you're a busy man and you're flying all around the world doing important stuff, meeting Cillian Murphy and having beers with your friends for 50th birthdays.
It's coming up.
Start off. Maybe for people who don't know who you are, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from and what you do, Jeff.
Absolutely. So my name's Jeff Gothelf, and these days at least, I work as a keynote speaker and as a trainer and as a coach for large and medium-sized organizations, helping them build more collaborative cultures, teaching them product management, teaching them Lean UX, teaching them OKRs, and working with the leadership teams to help them build the kind of organizations and cultures and processes that support these modern ways of working. So I do that at kind of the leadership level and the team level. My background is design. I used to be an information architect. I started as a web designer in the late 90s, just kind of doing markup and graphic design. Moved into information architecture, UX design, interaction design, eventually started leading teams. And then what was interesting was when I started leading teams about 10 years into my career, I was forced to reconcile design and agile.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting question in 2008,
Mm.
because in 2008, there wasn't a whole lot of positive anything about design and agile. And so,
Mm.
but I had to solve it because I had a team and I had an organization that was moving into kind of more agile ways of working, and I had to figure it out. And so we were lucky enough to be able to run experiments. I wrote about those experiments, and where we netted out was a process that we called lean UX.
Yeah.
And that's turned into my first book with Josh Seiden. And then that book really changed my life because it did
Mm.
well. It continues to do well. And people really want to know how to practically apply the
Yeah.
what I thought were practical ideas in the book. And so I spent a lot of my time teaching the ideas from that book to various teams and organizations. And so that's
Mm.
kind of my back. I've written a few books since then. And
Yeah.
these days I work as a solopreneur, very popular
Yeah. Very
word
popular
these
term now.
days. Yep. I did start a product studio for a few years, again with Josh Seiden and Gift Constable. And after 4 years, we ended up selling it. And then I've been on my own for the last 8 years or so.
Yeah. Very good. It's a great background. Like with the lean UX stuff around that time, user experience and UX was still kind of finding its feet.
Hmm.
It was kind of finding itself in places that we didn't think it was going to find ourselves in. Tech businesses, software businesses was an obvious home for it.
Yeah.
How did you find the hidden value to sell and explain user experience to the businesses that didn't get it then? And what can we learn from that about carrying it forward for OKRs? Because we're at that point now.
Yeah. It's interesting. I lived on the West Coast briefly, 2006, 2007, West Coast of the United States,
Mm.
2006, 2007. And when I moved back in 2007, I got a job at an agency. And I asked the woman who ran that agency, I
Mm.
said, tell me about how you value UX and UX design, because I have a couple of job offers.
Yeah.
And, if I'm going to choose to work for you, I need to know that you understand and value what I bring to the table. And I got this very beautifully written paragraph about the importance of UX to the practice and to the clients and to the work that we do. And it sold me. And I took the gig and I spent a year there suffering, creating, 100-page wireframe decks and design requirements documents that never really saw the light of day. And when I left after a year of frustration and got my next job, I went to my boss, who was not the woman who wrote that letter. I went to my boss and I said, listen, a year ago, I came here. I'm quitting. A year ago, I
Just so you
came
know.
here. One of the main reasons I came here was this letter. Right? I printed it out and I kind of held it up for her. I said, this letter from the boss. And she said, yeah, I wrote that for her.
You're joking me.
No, that's what she said. And I said, that makes perfect sense to me now. I
Yeah.
understand. And that was mean. And you tricked me. And you
Yeah.
shouldn't have done that to me. And so I learned a lot, I think, during that time, both sort of how to discover whether or not an organization values design, but then also
Mm.
how to sell it to clients and other organizations. And I think what I really liked was that in subsequent work, the conversations that I led that were designed to increase awareness and appreciation for the design work that we were doing always focused on the business problems that we were solving and the impact that good design work was going to have on the business. The reality is,
Yeah.
I went to work for a high growth startup after that agency. And the reality is that as much as he also pretended to care about it, the founder slash CEO, he loved spreadsheets,
Mm.
and my work didn't show up in spreadsheets, not on a daily basis anyway.
Yeah.
And so when we sat down to have meaningful conversations about the design work that we were doing, it was always positioned, anchored in, and using the language of business, right? And I think to me
Yeah.
that was a clear a clear win over the years that I've translated over and over and over again is to really translate is what it is. You're
Mm.
translating the work that you're doing into a
Sure.
language that your audience cares about.
Yeah.
And that makes a tremendous difference.
Yeah. Around that time, there was a lot of people writing popular blogs about user experience. Certain podcasts were starting up. Um, but what was really happening at that time, I believe, was like the foundational understanding of the value of what this could bring to businesses, new opportunities, alignment of the customer or the person using the product or services needs, and how we can actually go about meeting those needs and expectations. So with OKRs, and we're having a little bit of a private joke here because in Ireland we say or for the letter or.
Yours.
So I'm going to be over enunciating R for the rest of this because I don't want to give Jeff any kind of mileage. But in OKRs, what do you see as being the main blockers? And what are the kind of bits holding it back in terms of it getting to that level of foundational understanding within organizations?
So John Doerr wrote a book. John Doerr, the venture capitalist,
Yeah.
who's now trying to fight climate change. Thank you, John Doerr.
Good man, John.
He wrote a book called Measure What Matters.
Mm.
And every CEO and leader in the world seems to have a copy of that book. Well, I don't know if they've read it or not, but they understand that it's a book about OKRs. That is a service that John Doerr did us. He introduced the concept to the people who have influence over the organizations where we work.
Yeah.
He also did us a disservice, in that he was not adamant about the specifics of what should be included in an objective statement and what should be included in a key results statement. And so the takeaway for most of these organizations is we're going to rebrand our goals as OKRs, and everything will continue as it was before. That's not how I see it working. And I think that was a disservice that was done. And so that the main blocker is coming into organizations who essentially believe that they've rebranded their existing goal setting framework as OKRs, and not a whole lot has to change.
Yeah.
And I come in and I say, actually, this is a fundamentally different way of setting goals. And they say, well, why is it different? I said, well, because your objective has to be a qualitative statement, right? Your objective can't be, sell more stuff or gain more customers or build the dashboard or the mobile app or whatever it is, right? Your objective is a qualitative, strategically aligning statement for the team about what you're trying to do as a team. We're trying to build the easiest way to buy furniture online in Europe, right? We're trying to create the most user-friendly mortgage application in the financial services sector. Whatever it is, like we're going to align the team. This is the motivation. This is why we get out of bed every morning, right? Dashboard, that doesn't get me out of bed in the morning. Making it really easy for people to apply for a mortgage, right? Or maybe we can even make it easy for low-income people to apply for a mortgage. Wow, I'll get out of bed for that.
Yeah.
Right? So that's number one, right? So that's one blocker, is getting folks to think qualitatively about why they're doing something. Most folks are like, well, my boss said dashboard, so
I'm building
dashboard, and then the key results is where this gets interesting, different, and very tricky. The fundamental difference that makes OKRs powerful is the qualitative side of the objective, and then the key results being metrics that are measures of human behavior. And that's the key difference, right? So we're setting goals that said we want to make the simplest way for low-income people to apply for a mortgage. Terrific. How will we know we have done that? Well, we want to see a 75% increase in the number of low-income folks applying for a mortgage. We want to see half of those folks completing that process successfully. And we'd like to see, 15% at least increase in the approval rates, something along those lines.
Yeah,
right?
tangible.
But what you'll notice I didn't talk about there at all was what we are building. The only
Mm.
thing I talked about in the objective and the key results was the qualitative goal and the changes in human behavior that will tell us that we've achieved the qualitative goal.
Mm.
And it's a simple idea, right? I just
Yeah.
explained it to you. Like that's it. That's OKR. Done.
It's really the collective collaboration of pieces within the ecosystem to get that outcome. So it's agnostic to digital or agnostic to
Exactly. Yeah.
that's the key piece.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with digital product development, in
Yeah.
fact, right? And that's a beautiful thing. It's a 40-year-old
Yeah.
idea. And I mean, Andy Grove at Intel came up with it, but it's not unique to tech. But fundamentally, but it's a goal-setting framework for teams.
Yeah.
So usually the goal that's set for teams is build the dashboard, build the mobile app,
Yeah.
launch the campaign, deploy the new policy, whatever it is, right? Build the website. What we're saying here now is I need you to get more low income people applying for a mortgage through our website. Okay. And I didn't tell you how to do it.
Exactly. And that's the piece. You didn't tell them. You weren't specific. You lean on your employees to become springboards and give them the opportunities to solve the problem.
I mean, dare we trust them to do their jobs?
Yeah.
Let's not get crazy here, Jerry.
But that's the bit, honestly, like that you know 100 times more about OKRs than I do. And I don't really train it enough because I feel like, okay, there's probably people who are more kind of qualified to talk about OKRs, but that as its fundamental piece is what I really, align with it, that it doesn't be specific enough and relies on the intelligence of the collective to really empower that whole kind of meeting of the needs.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking like this, and you go into an organization, who typically do you see is creating the OKRs, and who should be creating the OKRs?
Yeah.
OKRs. Now I'm starting to sound like a pirate. The OKRs.
Yeah. The common pattern with the clients that I work with is the OKRs are driven top down. So the leadership team will set strategic OKRs, and then they'll say, okay, business unit A, these are your OKRs, business unit B, these are yours, C, these are yours. And then the leaders of those organizations will then deploy OKRs down to the various teams. That's the way that we typically see it. A much more effective way to do it is top down and bottom up. So top down is right to an extent. We need a strategic focus for the organization.
And ownership.
And then we need measures of that strategic direction. And those essentially become an organizational level OKR. But then the leaders of that organization need to ask the people who are doing the work, okay, how can what you're working on, right, support the overall vision of the organization? And what would be the goals that you would work towards that you believe are leading indicators of success for the organizational OKRs? And what that does, it does a couple of things. Number one is it allows each team to set its own goals. And a team that signs itself up for goals that it came up with on its own is far more motivated to hit those goals than if they were given to them.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two is those teams can provide those goals within, and they should, within the sphere of influence that they have. And so what I mean by that is all too often an anti-pattern that we see is the goal's revenue. All of you are on the hook for revenue. And it's like, okay, but I'm on the authentication team, right? Like my job is to get people into the product successfully. Like I understand that 3, 4, 5, 6 steps downstream that impacts revenue, but I work on authentication. If we give the teams autonomy over setting their own goals, they can say, okay, great. Look, our job, right, is to build the smoothest authentication process in the, B2C financial services world, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? And how do we know? There's a 90% decrease in the number of people calling customer service about authentication. There is a 50% increase in the number of folks authenticating successfully in a first try, and whatever, some other third measure. Maybe 2 are enough in that particular case. what we've done here is we've given the team the autonomy to set their own goals in a world that they can control, right? But that they can also tell a compelling story about how it connects to the organizational goals. If people
Mm.
authenticate successfully, then they get to the product page much more quickly. They add to cart and then they shop and they buy, we make money. But I don't control any of that stuff
Yeah, it's outside of it.
after, right? And so and so then we meet in the middle, right? Top down, bottom up. And the leaders have to approve it. And so yeah, that makes sense. That's compelling. I think that's a leading indicator.
Hmm.
Let's do that. But that's a far better way of doing it than just being told what your goals are.
Yeah. In green fields, blue sky, whatever you want to say, approaches for organizations just implementing OKRs for the first time, I get it. Okay. The bit that I sometimes struggle with, and maybe you can help me with this one, is when the OKRs shift. So things are already in the backlog that are aligned to the previously set OKRs. And now they're all of a sudden, they've inherited OKRs that haven't been hit, and there's things in the backlog that still need to get done. How do you get around that? Where you've got suddenly legacy OKRs hanging in the backlog of development and design teams?
There cannot be a point. Let me rephrase. There shouldn't be a point
Yeah.
in time where an OKR has languished for longer than a quarter, I'm going to say, sort of
Okay.
as a common and generic cycle time, right?
Mm.
There shouldn't be a situation where an OKR has languished for more than a quarter without somebody saying, does this still make sense? Are we still working towards this? How do we reconcile this with new information that we have
Okay.
now collected?
Yeah.
Right?
So if that's
Someone
still
got to
happening,
raise
then
their
it's
hand
more of
and
a
say,
scrum master, isn't it? It's more of a scrum
Scrum
master
master,
then.
product manager,
Yeah.
design leader, whoever, right? But whoever recognizes that this thing exists,
Mm.
it's just kind of hanging out there, and we've got all these other goals that are now coming up. We've got to decide because we can't do it all.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a relationship between those two things that makes sense, and we should figure
Hmm.
that out. And maybe there isn't, and maybe we say goodbye to the old metric or to one of the new ones, whatever. But we've got to have that conversation to reconcile it.
Yeah. You seem like a really smart guy, Jeff. Okay, right. You're either one of two things. You're either correct or you're not, but you're doing something really right here. I want to ask you a question. We're going to light some three fictional Chinese lanterns of problems of OKRs that you can see. We're going to let them go here. Okay. If you think of things like this, what are the most common problems from an organizational perspective around implementation of OKRs into an organization? What's the first lantern that we're going to light for Jeff to let go of and release it and feel the energy release from your body when we do it?
The toughest part is managing to outcomes. It's managing to human behavior
Yeah.
because all of us, look, even me, right? I've been working and teaching this stuff for 15 years.
Yeah.
Um, we love to think in features. We love to think in output, right? I'm going to build this
Mm.
amazing website. I'm gonna write this article, right? I'm gonna write a book.
Yeah.
I'm going to commit 2 years of my life to writing a book, right? And we love to think that way, and then measure success in the deployment of the thing. We shipped the
Mm.
vacation policy. I wrote the book. We built the website, whatever it is. Organizations struggle to manage to outcomes because
Yeah.
it's not binary, right? Making a
Mm.
thing, managing the output is binary, right? Did you make the thing? Yeah, here it is. Terrific. It's tangible. You did your job. I can measure that. And if I can measure it, I can manage it and reward it. Did you increase retention by 50%? Well, we increased retention by 27%. Okay. Here's what we learned. Here's what we would do if you let us continue working towards this. But it's a much more difficult conversation. Well, did the team succeed? Did it fail?
Mm.
What do I punish them? Do I reward them? Do I, fire them? Like all of these, it becomes really difficult. And so, reorienting an organization around managing the outcomes, changes in human behavior. To be super clear about what I mean when I say
Mm.
outcomes, right? Is really, really difficult. That's the biggest lantern that we are going to
Yeah.
release.
That's the first one.
Yes.
All right. What's the second one?
The second one is if you can get the organization to agree to writing good OKR statements, good by my definition of good,
Yeah.
to be super clear, where the key results are measures of human behavior, right? And there's no features in the
Yeah.
objective
Attached to that.
or in the key results, then the next step becomes, well, now what? And this is where organizations kind of hit the next hurdle.
Mm.
They don't know how to choose what to work on. They don't know how to decide if it's a good thing to work on
Mm.
or bad. And this is really where design and research begin to
Yeah.
shine, because this is where product discovery thrives, right?
Mm.
This is why I love OKRs, because I believe OKRs done well create the explicit need for design and research to take place, because there is an infinite number of options
Mm.
for every team to achieve their objective and key result goals. Literally,
Yeah.
an infinite combination of code, copy, design, value proposition, business model, pricing model,
Hold on. Yeah.
go to market strategy, all that stuff, right? There's literally an infinite. Which combination is best,
Yeah.
right? And we, no matter how much somebody gets paid in your organization, they don't know. And you
Yeah.
don't know. You have good guesses, they have good guesses. And so we need to do design work. We need to do research work. We need to do product discovery. And organizations don't know how to do that or don't allow that work to take place. And
Yeah.
that's a really big next challenge, right? So we got the goals in place, but now the teams are like, you always tell me what to make. I don't know what to make.
It's just coming out of the abyss. What's your thoughts then with, say, the likes of triple track agile?
Triple track. What's the third? I know two. I know dual track. What's the third track? I got delivery, discovery. What's the third?
Triple track is more around the discovery of, implementation of research. You're just essentially giving yourself another track for that experimentation to occur. Have you
Yeah.
any
So, so,
experience with that? You can
so we
take
call
this out of
it
the
dual
episode.
track agile, right?
Yeah, triple
Because
track is what.
the two tracks are, and I think Marty Kagan coined this term, but the two tracks are delivery and discovery,
Okay.
right? And so all like delivery, like I think design operates in both spaces, because if we're going
Mm.
to deliver work, we have to design the actual work. If we're going to do discovery work, we're going to do some research, some experimentation, some design work.
And then that goes into the backlog.
Yeah. Um, so dual track agile as a concept is sound, and this is kind of where a third sort of lantern of pain can be floated away. Is that
I love
um,
the fact you're still going with it.
you know,
I've let it go.
listen, I mean, we promised people three. I've only
Yeah,
done two. I'm not going to be the guy who lets the
the
audience down.
story arc. Yeah, this
Exactly.
is the
We're going to land
resolution.
this plane, Jerry.
Yeah,
It's going to be
exactly.
awesome. It's going to be awesome. Um, is that most organizations will divide that work into
Mm.
two teams. So you've got a
Yeah,
delivery team who's making stuff, and you've got a discovery team that's researching stuff. And
yeah,
that is a massive anti pattern, because as soon as you have that, you've got handoffs. As soon as you've got handoffs, you've got editorializing, because that's what
yeah,
humans do when we tell stories, and biases, and you break the shared understanding and the flow and the efficiency of a dual track process, a lean UX process, whatever you want to call it, right? Product discovery. And so that's a really big pain point there as well, is that we want one, it's two types of work, but it's one team doing both types of work.
I'm just taking note of something there. So the triple track is, I'm going to take that bit out of the episode, I think, because it's just, I'm pretty sure that someone else has spoken to me about triple track.
I don't know what the third track would be.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm mispronouncing. Maybe it's dual track that I was getting. I don't get into this stuff. I get into the agile. I'm just like, okay, cool. Just give me the training program. So when you're talking about measuring the OKRs, Jeff, right? The the bit that I've noticed when I'm training businesses, it comes to the crunch time where there's like they're going to evaluate, is there a metric, are we hitting this metric?
Yeah.
How do you advise teams to be able to continuously measure over time? And is there an opportunity there to improve that process?
So there are at least two sides to every conversation when it comes to measuring. There's
Yeah.
quantitative and there's qualitative. When it comes to quantitative, we want to use the tools that we have at our disposal
Mm.
to measure what people are currently doing and what they're doing after we start to build some of these experiments and launch some of these new ideas. If you're working in a digital space, it means instrumenting your products and services with analytics tools so that you can go back and measure what people are doing in that conversation.
Can I
If
whisper something in this bit here around NPS?
let's talk about that in a second. Let, let,
Okay.
let's talk about NPS in just a second. I think if you're working in a physical space, like you're building a service, right? You're building kind of a wayfinding system for an airport.
Hmm.
Right? I think that's going to require you probably going to the airport and observing and literally counting people and seeing how many people get lost and ask for
Sure.
directions or miss a gate or whatever it is, those types of things, right? The other side of the conversation is qualitative. You have to talk to people regularly, consistently to understand why they're behaving in the
Yeah.
ways that you're measuring, right? Why did you choose the left hallway instead of the right hallway? Oh, because the arrow was pointing that way. Okay, great. I understand now. Why did you click the red button over the blue button? Right. Well, I didn't even see the blue button because it's on a blue background. Whatever
Mm.
it is, right? So you want to ask people, "Well, I didn't understand what the text on the button meant." And so you want to get the quantitative and the
Yeah.
qualitative to understand what's happening. But both of these are two sides of the same story. You need both to decide how to move forward, and you need that information continuously. This is something that every cycle, whether it's a sprint or whether it's whatever the cycle time is that you're using,
Okay.
this happens every time.
So it's not a case of leaving it for 12 weeks later when the next quarter comes up and saying A result, B result, and
Ideally,
compare. It's
no.
continuous. I love that because it encourages organizations to do the research
Yeah, to learn
continuously.
continuously. I mean, look, there will be contexts
Yeah.
where you can't get the data back immediately, right? It's going to take a week
Mm.
or two or three to really get anything meaningful back. You're not waiting for statistical significance, but you're looking for something meaningful, and that's okay, right? But
Yeah.
generally, continuously, we want to be learning.
So I mentioned I was going to say the dreaded three letters, but I don't know whether to weave this into this episode, folks, but I'll go there. It's a potential bomb. But NPS. So when it comes to this, when you're measuring it, still the most common three letters that I hear at this stage is the NPS score goes up. What's your take on this, Jeff?
I wrote a blog post a couple of years back called "NPS is a waste of time."
Oh, I think I remember. This is you say KFC. Is this
Uh,
the KFC?
no.
Might have been Jared Spool or
That might
something
have been
about
Jared Spool, yeah. But it was around the time that Jared was also railing against NPS.
NPS.
I mean, look, even the guy who made NPS, who invented it, is now like, well, it's not that great. Here's the problem. Look, here's the net promoter score, right? Asks people to rate how likely they are to recommend something to recommend an experience to a friend on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Right. And so let's talk about a couple of the problems with that. I'll talk about some of the more minor ones and then the biggest one, right?
Hmm.
The minor one is how likely are you to recommend Jerry's podcast to a friend?
Very, 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 very much so.
Right. 6.
Screw
Right.
you, Jeff.
No, but like, why is 6 bad? Like, does that mean that like if 10
I look
people
for the
ask
eights and
me
the nines and the
6
tens,
times
Jeff,
out
in
of
this
10,
podcast.
no, but like if 10
This
people
isn't
ask me,
going out. This episode's going straight in the can.
right? 12 out of 10.
Better.
There you go. But my point is, it's all meaningless. Like a
Yeah.
6 or a 7. Like, what does that even mean, right? Like, the other challenge with NPS, and this is by far the biggest problem with NPS, is that it asks people to predict future behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
How likely are you to recommend this to a friend? 12 out of 10. Right. Have you ever recommended it to a friend? Nope.
No.
Right. This is why Netflix doesn't ask, how likely are you to recommend Netflix to a friend? They ask, when you sign up, they say, did someone recommend Netflix to you? right?
Oh, yeah,
And
true.
so that's a thing that actually happened. In the future, we never make mistakes. We always do the right thing. We always do the best thing, and we never disappoint the person who's asking us the question about what we're going to do in the future. Right?
Yeah,
My business partner Josh, when he talks about this, he always uses the example, particularly when we're teaching and if we're on the road. He'll use it as an example of breakfast. You know, Jeff, what are you going to have for breakfast tomorrow? Oh, well, I like to have a healthy breakfast. I like to have like half a grapefruit, black coffee, and maybe like a piece of toast. Like that's it. Great,
interesting.
Jeff. What did you have for breakfast this morning? Right. Well, I was at the hotel and they had the most amazing buffet, and I had bacon and eggs and potatoes
Yeah,
and a pudding and hot chocolate and waffles and all that stuff. Right. We always want to talk to people about what they have done recently rather
yeah,
than because again, I don't necessarily want to admit to you that I'm going to eat that in the future. So I'm going to tell you something that makes me feel good about myself. I'm going to eat a healthy breakfast tomorrow.
yeah.
Right. That's
That's
the flaw with NPS. And so I want to say one more thing about NPS, because there's no getting rid of it.
yeah.
Right.
It's
It's
still
on every
around.
executive dashboard. Right. And so when that comes up, if you're working towards OKRs and some boss somewhere says, "What about NPS?" You can say, "Okay, boss, let's keep NPS as a kind of a corporate barometer, and then ask them this question. Okay,
Hmm.
what behavior do satisfied people do in our product or service? What behavior do dissatisfied people exhibit in our product or service? And then let's work on optimizing those things."
Yeah. There's a couple of episodes in the back catalog just on NPS, folks, where I think I might have used the bullshit word a couple of times, but they're still up there if you're on premium. But I have a couple of more questions, Jeff, because I know we're going to try and wrap it up on time. In terms of scaling OKRs in organizations, I know the new book that you're working on with Jeff. Um, Give us the title again.
It's called Who Does What by How Much?
Okay. So what I really liked about the prelude when we were chatting about this is it's for everyone. Okay, so it's everybody is involved in the delivery of a service or product within that ecosystem. How do you envisage it's going to work with the new book coming out? Like, are we hoping for organizations to buy 5,000 copies and give them to all 5,000 employees? Yes,
Yeah.
we will. That would be really nice. And if you want to find out more, you can go to jeffgothelf.com and do an order. Only joking. But if you have an organization like that, there's obviously an educational piece around defining what an OKR is and the training aspect of it, and really educating the organization about everybody's involvement and how it all correlates. A book is one part of that. What other things do organizations need to do to really successfully implement it, do you think?
Yeah. So the book is designed to be that book, right? So that the
5,000
organization
copies.
buys for
Okay,
everybody in the company,
nice.
ideally. Look, on top of that, you're going to need coaching, right? Some level of training and coaching.
Yeah,
Somebody to come in and say, "I know you've read the book. Let's talk about it in your context, corporate, corporate lawyer, right? Let's talk about
yeah,
it in your context." I did this exercise a few months ago with a shoe company,
yeah.
right? And while they certainly have digital people and they've got marketing people, they've got shoe designers. And
Mm,
as clearly as I can teach and explain this in the generic sense, the shoe designer came to me and said, "How does this make sense in my world?"
yeah,
Right? And so you've got to walk people through. You got to do some coaching, some training that's contextual to the specific folks where this is particularly foreign or new, and that really helps to bring this home. I think, look, in larger organizations, and what I've seen across larger organizations is that they build transformation teams to
mm,
support this. And those transformation teams serve as the in-house coaches, the in-house advocates, as well as the folks who bring in external support to help kind of disseminate the ideas broadly. But you need a consistent um,
language.
conversation, and then you need people that the staff can go to and ask questions comfortably.
Okay. And is that a service that Jeff and Josh offer? as well.
Coincidentally, yes, that is a
Yeah.
service that we
Well,
offer.
I
Thank
was
you for
waiting for you to
asking.
finish the paragraph.
Yeah,
But in terms of that shoe designer,
yeah,
give me an example of how you distilled down
yeah.
their impact.
Yes. So the shoe designer makes shoe designs, but those. And so
Yeah.
the question then becomes, and this is the question that we ask anybody: who consumes the shoe design? Right. So
Mm.
the shoe design is consumed by the go-to-market people, the merchandisers, the people
Mm.
who have to procure materials for the
Okay. Yeah.
making of the shoe. Let's just talk about those three people. There are probably some others, but at least those three folks. The way that the shoe designer has traditionally delivered those designs may not be the most effective way to make those people successful. So those three people are his customers, right? He
Mm.
has to think of them
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
his customers, and he needs to make them successful. So what is it that the merchandiser needs from the shoe design deliverable to make their life easier? What about the
Yeah.
procurement person who's buying, leather and rubber and
Exactly.
laces, right? That to me is a concept that most folks
Mm.
don't think about. They don't think about their
Absolutely.
work that way, and that's
Yeah.
the fundamentally different conversation.
I love the fact because organizations inherently by default are complex. So there's
Yeah.
so many they're a complex ecosystem.
Mhm.
And what we're seeing here, folks, is OKRs is helping disseminate that and make it into a complicated scenario that can be broken down into executionable parts.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look at frameworks like Kinevin and stuff, that this is really it's a powerful framework, I guess, to get to that point. On one last question is where do you see the future? Because like looking back at lean UX 2008 2009 UX got adopted. It's kind of going through a rebrand for the last couple of years. It's product design, it's whatever. But when you look at OKRs, it would be great if organizations got to that point where it was widely adopted and we were talking about OKRs as part of the design toolkit maybe.
Sure.
What do you see the future of OKRs and how does it weave within the world for change makers?
I think it's inevitable that this becomes just the way that we work. And here's why. Um, we build companies and organizations on top
Mm,
of technology. It's how we keep the business running. It's how we scale the business. It's how we optimize it. It's how we react to changes in the world. The technology that supports our businesses and our organizations isn't static. It's dynamic. It's continuous. And the better we get at deploying this technology, the faster it becomes, the easier it becomes. And so the old measures of success of making a thing and shipping it, they don't make sense anymore when you can ship something every day, right? Or if even every hour, or if you can make a change on a weekly basis, those that measure of success doesn't mean anything anymore. On top of that, our customers, our users, the people who we serve, their expectations are changing daily, weekly,
yeah.
monthly, based on all of the new products that they're consuming. And if
Mm,
we're not able to react to those changes in consumer behavior and consumption patterns, then we fall behind and we fail. And so I suspect that at some point, the look, we're fighting 100 years of manufacturing history and
yeah.
MBAs and business school right now. So there's an immense sort of historical inertia that is
Sure.
making this difficult. But that's gonna fall behind as kind of technology continues to kind of rule the world here. And so I can easily see a point in time in the next, I'm gonna say decade. Let's be
Yeah.
optimistic, conservative
Yeah.
yet optimistic, where this is just the way that we set goals and we stop mentioning these things by name, I hope.
So 2008, 2009, Jeff was probably just about aware of OKRs at that point. Is that fair to say?
Managing the outcomes. I don't think we were calling them OKRs just yet,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So your book is one that's coming out now with Jeff and Josh, which
Mhm.
sounds like a TV show, doesn't it? But what other people are you following who are pushing the craft of OKR?
I mean, Christina Whitkey has
Yeah.
been at the forefront of this for years.
Yeah.
You know,
That's right.
she's been our inspiration, and she's a smart voice on this topic. Her book Radical Focus, I think in second edition now, really foundational, I think, for a lot of
Yeah.
folks about this concept. That goes a long way. You know, I think people out there like Jeff Patton, who are teaching
Mm.
what he calls passionate product ownership
Yeah.
to more agile minded folks, are a great force for good. And then I would add that folks like Teresa Torres, who, you know, build communities and teach them how to do product discovery,
Mm.
enable us to use OKRs more effectively, because the more people that know how to do product discovery, the more likely we are to get these goals to stick.
Yeah. One last point. I remember a number of years ago, you were talking about ikigai and your purpose and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we recently had Hector Garcia on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
who authored The Journey to Ikigai.
Yeah.
Where do you see your own self and your own purpose going in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a good question. Thank you. I would like, my goal, I think, in all of this is
Mm.
twofold. I think if I can help folks make their customers more successful, that's a win for me. While at the same time helping those same folks do better work, be happier at work as part of that, that's the dual purpose here for me, right? So if we're looking sort of that, what motivates me the most, it's both of those things, right? Let's help make your folks successful. And in the process of doing that, let's make you happy at work and able to do what you've been hired to do.
Yeah. And what about you, like in terms of Jeff behind all of this stuff? What's the sense of purpose that you get from writing these books?
Well, turns out, and if you had asked me this 15 years ago, I would be shocked at my answer 15 years later. I really like teaching.
Yeah.
I've really fallen in love with teaching. I've discovered a passion for it. It turns out I'm pretty good at it, which I had no idea that I even had any predilection for this. And to me, I genuinely like when you can get this concept across to someone and their face lights up, and you're like, oh yes, I get it. That makes me happy.
So you think this is your ikigai? You found, as they say in Japan, like this is you found this sense of purpose
Yeah,
in your
I
life.
like teaching, and I'd like to continue teaching this stuff for as long as it makes sense.
Yeah. It comes across, Jeff, like it's not something like sometimes we've had people on the podcast where I feel like they're regurgitating stuff and they just kind of go like this is like you can see when you're talking about it, you're like, this is gets you up out of bed in the morning.
It does, and it makes sense to me. So if I can make it make sense for other folks, that's a win
That's
for
good.
me.
Look, Jeff, I end every episode on This Is Hate City by thanking the guests for, being put on the spot, showing their vulnerability and giving me their time and energy. So thank you so much for giving me your time and energy today. It's been really good chatting with you. I'll put a link to all of this stuff into the show notes, the book. Is there a place where people can go and pre-order it? Because it's out November the 15th.
Yeah, it will be on Amazon. It's not on there yet, but you can once it's live on Amazon, we'll post it everywhere, and then you can pre-order. Yeah,
Yeah, if you go on to Jeff Gothelf, I'm sure there's a place you can sign up to the newsletter and then
yeah,
Jeff
exactly.
can.
OKR-book.com. That's a great place
There
to
you go.
go.
Well, look, Jeff, thanks so much. Stay safe.
My pleasure, Jerry. Thank you so much for having me.